Hello everyone, I, Dr. Vibha Rathod, Assistant Professor History, Department of Humanities, BSSS College, Bhopal. Today again, I am here with another series of Idea of Bharat. Now, the important topic which is related to ancient India, that is ancient Indian education. So, we are going to start a journey towards this Indian education system. So, as in the slide, you can see that the Indian education system. So, whenever we talk about Indian education system, we have a lot of things in our mind. There is a quotation which is said by Dr. Vankataiah. He said that education without vision is waste. Education without value is crime, and education without mission is a life burden. Really, it's true. Without education, there is nothing in the entire world. So, we are going to discuss the very important part of ancient education system that is presented by me. The topics which I am going to cover here, first we are going to talk about that the education system in ancient India, secondly the aims of Vedic education, then third it is the salient features of education system, and fourth it is the methods of teaching in Vedic period, fourth especially I am going to talk about that Buddhist education also, and sixth it is ancient educational system. If we are talking about ancient India, we need to take this in our mind that this time only the Sanatan religion was there, and as well as 6th century onwards the Buddhism religion and Jaina religion it came up. So a mixed study of Vedic education, simultaneously Buddhist education I am going to discuss today. So let's start. The ancient education system in India had a definite ideal and a mission. Unlike the Western education system, it did not focus on inculcating only the students are culcating that subject related knowledge. It is beyond that. So teaching and learning followed the tenets of Vedas and Upanishads, fulfilling the duties towards self, towards family, towards their society, and as well as towards their nation. So as Vedic people, they considered education as a source of light, which enlightened them in all aspects of life. It is an appropriate Vedic verse which is mentioned in Rig Veda, and it is very apt to used. This is an opening, that is Ano Bhadraha Kritvo Yantu Vishwataha. It means ki that from wherever you are getting the noble thoughts, get it. Means the let noble thoughts come to me from all directions. This was the basic thought of ancient sages, rishis and munis. So let's move with another slide. This slide is telling us that in the time period of Rig Veda, which focused on hymns and mantras, basically the education was slowly evolved by inculcating the good habits, and this time the both inner and the outer self of an individual, and establishing a holistic kind of development was there. Holistic development, it focuses on individual as a whole and not as a part of a particular aspect. So therefore, education proved to focus on moral, physical, spiritual and intellectual aspects of life. Rather than teaching facts and defined statements, students were taught values such as humility, truthfulness, discipline, self-reliance and respect for all creations. So Indians always tried to establish a lifestyle that was one with nature. So since beginning we can say that our ancient people were environmental conscious. So they viewed nature as a source of life. Even the gods they worshipped, they all were having a relation with the nature, as sun god, moon god, air god. Other plants were also worshipped in this time period. So here we can say they were having a very good relation with the nature also. And they learned to draw their sustenance from nature, in turn protecting the ecosystem, which we are talking nowadays, that the protection of ecosystem, ecology, that was already there in the education. So education blended harmony with nature and knowledge, and they learned to appreciate the balance between human beings as well as with the nature. D.R. Altekar writes that the objectives of education in Vedic period were worship of God, a feeling for religion, fulfillment of public and civic duties, an increase in social efficiency, and protection and propagation of national culture. So here you can see that this ancient education, it added all the aspects of life which were related to religion, which were related to moral values, which were related to civic duties, even these the values which were related to social efficiency toward their society and as well as towards their nature. Education, it was focused on achieving a sound mind in a sound body. So Indian education taught one how to deal with life, the problems. It offers a patriarchal way rather than giving an idealistic approach. It was achievable and afforded to students insight in the areas that they were lacking. Thus, we can say it was being complementary. So the Indian education system, it produced great scholars like Panini, like Aryabhatta, Patanjali, Bhaskaracharya, Charak, Sushrut and many more. Charak and Sushrut, they were the good Ayurveda acharyas, those who established the medical sciences concept in ancient time period. Panini, who introduced, he was a great grammarian who introduced grammar. Aryabhatta, he was a great astronomer and a scientist. He has given a lot to our ancient Indian society. The rich heritage of ancient Indian knowledge has been a luminary for New Education Policy 2020. It attempts to reform the whole system of education right from the early childhood education to research studies. So a radical shift in the education system is the need of the hour, especially when the world is transforming into a digital world dominated by technology. What were the aims of Vedic education? So as I said that in ancient time period, Vedic education was there and the student used to go to the Gurukuls to get the education. So let us have a focus on the aims of this Vedic education. First, it was achieve supreme consciousness. The education's aim was achieve supreme consciousness. Second, it was there to inculcate the spirit of piety and righteousness. And if we say that what is religion, the religion is, it is all about the righteousness. So the righteousness, it was taught in that time period. Third, it is unfold the spiritual and moral values or moral powers individually. That was another part of this ancient education. Next, if we talk about that, they had more focused on physical, mental and intellectual personality of the student. Next, it is formation of good and moral character. Character was very important part in ancient education. So development of vocational efficiency. We cannot say that modern education only providing the vocational part of the education. It was already there in ancient time period. Another very important aim that Vedic education had, it was a healthy, positive attitude towards the life and dignity of labor was also added. Radha Komud Mukherjee, a very famous historian, he had done a detailed study on ancient education system and he brings to light the educational ideas found scattered in Hindu thought. He has stated that the aim of life and education was the realization of the absolute truth known as God, and the aim should be transform the entire personality of man. If we take the modern educationists, they also talked about the overall development. Now here some salient features which are very important when we talk about ancient education system or Vedic education system. So the first one, it is the culturally and spiritually enriched education system. Second, it was unique because that time Gurukul systems were already there and students used to go to the Gurukuls to get the education. Dominated by the strict code of conduct. Strict code of conduct I'll discuss in detail. So that time discipline was very, very important. Teacher-learner relationship was excellent. Development of civic responsibilities and social values were already there in the society. So if I am talking about that, the first one, that is the culturally and spiritually enriched education. So in this time period, as I said, that the religion played a very important role in education system, and the ultimate aim of the education was to seek the moksha. Moksha means the salvation, or we can call it nirvana. And nirvana in what sense? It doesn't mean that you have to go for the meditation and go and sit in the Himalayas and go and seek that kind of meditation. Here salvation means to get rid of your ambition, the greed and other negative thoughts. So here what was the main aim of the education? That is sa vidya ya vimuktaye, yani vidya वो है जो हमें liberate करती है, जो हमें मुक्त करती है. So it means knowledge is one that liberates. So liberates one from this is so called material world of greed, ambition, passion, etc. We can say that nowadays students, they are getting the education and they are having that one aim that we need to get good job, we need to get earn a good handsome amount. So that was actually not the focus of ancient education, and this is totally diverted in modern time period. Next, it is unique system of Gurukul. As you can see in the picture, there is a very peaceful atmosphere. Students used to live in the hermitages, in the ashrams of the gurus. They were getting the education in the surroundings of the nature. So the Gurukuls were the traditional residential schools for learning, which were usually the teacher's house or a monastery. Then if we talk about the code of conduct, yes, of course, the students who were joining the Gurukuls, they were joining the Gurukuls in a very early age. They were supposed to leave their home, their family, and they were living under the guidance of the Gurus. And the Gurus were taking proper care of their pupils. So, but they were having good code of conduct. They was very disciplined. So there was generally no provision for corporal punishment. Yes, it is a great important part of ancient education. There was no provision of corporal punishment. Discipline was free. Self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control, these three alone can lead life to sovereign power. Self-discipline was the best discipline, and obviously nobody is going to, if anybody is going to tell you that what you have to do and what not, so it is not going to give a great impact. So there should be a kind of a self-discipline, it should be there inside every individual. So ancient Indian education was dominated by strict moral codes of conduct, means everybody should realize that we have our own responsibility. We are individually responsible for such kind of act. So this kind of self-realization discipline was there in ancient Indian time period. Next and very important feature, that is the teacher-learner relationship. So Vedic student regard his teacher as his father. In Vedic period, there was very good kind of mutual understanding between teacher and student. The sense of discipline and the cordial relation between teacher and pupil of the Vedic age is well known to the world. Fifth point, it is development of civic responsibility and social values. Obviously that if we go and talk about that ancient Indian system, there was 4 ashrams, means the human being's life was divided into 25 and 25, so total 100 years lifespan was exactly there in ancient time period. So first 25 years of a student, it was for celebrating the celibacy, that is a kind of a brahmacharya. So that first 25 years of the life of a student, they were supposed to live in the gurukuls to get the education, and after getting the education, they were supposed to go and start a married life where they were responsible for the duties which were given to them towards the society and towards the nation. So the inculcation of civic virtues and social values was equally important. It was the main objective of ancient education system. The brahmachari, after his education, means the student who was not marrying till 25 and used to live in Gurukul, after getting the education, he went back to the society to serve the rich and the poor, to relieve diseased and the distressed. He was required to hospitable to the guest and charitable to the needy. Everyone had a responsibility to preserve the nation culture and act as a transmission medium to spread the knowledge. So it means that the next 25 years he is going to serve the society and the nation. So this was the basic and important feature of ancient education system. Now the methods which were there in ancient in Vedic time period. So education was concentrated to the three process. One, it is Shravan, means hearing, Manan means thinking, and third, it is Nidhyasana, means comprehension. So let us talk about these three methods which were there in Vedic education. Kickner quotes Gandhi that man is neither mere intellect nor the gross animal body, nor the heart or soul alone. A proper and harmonious combination of all the three is required for the making of whole man and constitutes the true economics of education. A very good quote which relates with the methods of teaching in Vedic education. So here I am with this flow chart, three process of education. One, it is, you can see, that is the Shravan, that is hearing, Manan, it is thinking, and Nidhyasana, it is a kind of a comprehension. Now going to detail about this Shravan. So what is Shravan? So here it is a difference between hearing and listening. So it means that listen and understand. So one should understand that it was not just hearing. Hearing was different and listening was different. So Shravan is listening to the truths as they fell from the lips of the teacher. Knowledge is technically called Shruti, or what the ear heard, not what is seen in writing. To all the literatures, all the four Vedas, they all are known as Shruti literature. Also means that the people were hearing and thinking afterwards. So here, then the next, it is Manan. So what is Manan? Manan is reflecting the things we listened, that is Shravan. So it is discussing the truth of opinions, and in this especially, Guru will raise the questions, students will answer, and the point will discussed in the group. So basically, whatever students were listening, gradually they were thinking, they were talking about them, and there was a discussion among the groups. Last and third process, it is Nidhyasana. So Nidhyasana means a complete comprehension by the pupil, the truth that is taught, so that he may live the truth and not merely explain it by word. So it is the realization of the truth. So means whatever students they learn, they hear, then they thought about all these things, and later they started bringing it in their practices. So these three important processes are there in ancient education, that is Shravan, Manan and Nidhyasana. Buddhist education, now I am moving. So as Vedic education, it was more focused on moral values and self-realization. So what is all about this Buddhist education? So Buddhist education, it was introduced in the time period when people were not much satisfied with the Vedic rituals. So that this new religion, Buddhism, emerged in 6th century onwards, and this religion was the religion which gave the entry to all caste, creed and color people. No discrimination was there in the society in Buddhism. So Buddhist education system, it was developed on the basis of basic life. This education is based on moral, mental and physical development of student, and it also diverts students towards the Sangha. What is Sangha? Sangha was a kind of a Buddhist monastery where the students, they were getting the education, especially we can say the monks and the nuns were residing in the Sanghas, and they were inculcating the moral values and the education over there. So tracing back to the 5th century BC, Buddhist education was originally taught by Lord Buddha, and it's a key characteristic, that is the monastic and the inclusive of all caste. As I said, that this time Buddhist education was focusing more on all-round and holistic development of child's personality, be it intellect and moral development, as well as physical and mental development was also included. So what are the important features of Buddhist education? So the aim of education, it basically meant to attain nirvana. Nirvana means the moksha, or we can say the salvation. So the entire system was set up accordingly. So the kind of education, it mainly attained in the mathas, that is monastery I said, viharas where these monks and nuns were staying, and the monasteries, and the system is managed by the monks altogether. This education system was broad and positive visions towards teaching. Hence, students belonging to all caste, religions and races were welcomed in these sanghas, and where this Buddhist education was imparted to them. Why? Because this time most of the people, they were not much inclined towards Brahmanical education, so they more focused on Buddhist education. Now moving to the next slide. This slide is telling us that how Buddhist education was different from Vedic education. So the curriculum of the Buddhist education was free from the communal narrowness, right? So basically here we can see that after some time that this Brahmins group, they started dominating the society. Different rituals were already emerged in the society. A kind of a social evil took place, which Buddhist people, they brought the concept of that all together people from all the caste, from all the religion, they started getting entry in the monasteries. So it focused on the development and promotion of art and literature. Second, the Ashoka, the Mauryan ruler, he also flourished Buddhism, and thousands of monasteries built by him in all over the country. To improve education, encourage Buddhist schools of thought, scholarships were granted. It is another very important feature which was missing in Vedic education. So scholarships were granted to the students, grants were given to the educational institutions, and benefits were made available to the students. So these things were added by the Buddhist education system. That is why we can say it was different from the Vedic education. So next, that is this time period, that is Buddhist education was different because it started giving subsidies to the pupils. It started gifting the lands or land donation, and pensions also started for the teachers. So some of the few steps which were taken in this direction, they are making this Buddhist education different from the Vedic education. Upliftment of monasteries by the ancient, medieval and modern governments also helped in improving the education system in ancient time period. Now, yes, when we talk about that education system, we need to talk about the ancient institutions which played a very important role in the development of education. So main education centers and universities which were there in ancient India, so they were like Takshila University, Nalanda University, Vikramshila, Odantpuri, Nadia, and Mithila and Jagdala universities, they were having a special mention in this aspect. So India can boast of the establishment of the world's first university in 700 BC. More than 10,500 students were there in the university, and they were studying more than 60 subjects in this Takshila University. So here another important fact related to Takshila University, this was the first university which was established in Takshila. Now Takshila, it is in Pakistan. It was established in 700 BC, and it was a very important learning center for Hindu as well as Buddhist center of learning. Vayu Puran, it traces the start of Takshila, and it is said that the Lord Rama's younger brother Bharat, his son's name was Taksh. His son established this university. That is why it is named after the Taksh, and that is why it is called, that is the Takshila University. One Chinese traveler, Fahian, another Chinese traveler, Huan Sang, they already mentioned about this Takshila University in their accounts. Then important facts, as I said, that more than 10,500 students were studying from all over the world in this university. They were from Babylonia, Greece, Arabia, China, and they were offered with 60 different courses like science, like mathematics, medicine, politics, warfare, astrology, astronomy, music, religion, philosophy. So these, not one or two, means more 60 subjects. It's really mean a lot that 60 subjects were offered to the students who were residing in this university from different parts of the world. So generally a student entered Takshila at the age of 16. An entrance exam, this is also very important part, that everybody was not getting admission in Takshila. So Takshila was, that entrance exam was very difficult, and only 3 out of every 10 student passed this admission test. Then Panini, the famous Sanskrit grammarian, Kautilya, the minister of Chandragupta Maurya or the writer of Arthashastra, they were the prominent teachers in this university. So it gained its importance again during the reign of Kanishka also. Kanishka belonged to Kushana dynasty, though they were the foreign invaders, but later on they adopted the Indian culture and settled here in India for a long time. It was probably the earliest of the ancient seats of higher education. Takshila is perhaps best known because of its association with Chanakya. So this famous treatise Arthashastra written by Chanakya, it is said that he composed this literature here in Takshila itself. This university has consisted 300 lecture halls with stone benches for sitting, observatory called the Ambudhara Velhi for astronomical research was already there, massive library called Dharma Gunj or Mountain of Knowledge. It was consisting of three main buildings. One is known as Ratnasagar, second one is known as Ratnadavi, and third one it is known as Ratna Yanjak. So we can imagine that how much elaborate this university was, how much big and huge university this was in this ancient time period. In the second half of the 5th century, it was severely damaged by Heptathlite invasions. As I said, India was a center of attraction for all the foreign invaders. So Shakas, Kushanas, Persians, Greek, all the people they attracted towards India. So in the 5th century, that Heptathlite invasions took place, and in this time period, this university was totally abolished, and the inhabitants they abandoned this area. So Takshila, later on, finally it was excavated by the John Herbert Marshall, British archaeologist, who at the time of excavation was the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. Takshila, later on, it was listed in the UNESCO World Heritage Site in the year 1980. Another university I'm talking about, that is the Nalanda University. Here you can see, though this is the picture of the ruins of the Nalanda University. So it was also a very famous university in ancient time period. The Nalanda, it is actually located in the state of Bihar, about 55 miles southeast of Patna, and was Buddhist center of learning from 427 to 1197 CE. And it has been called one of the first universities recorded in ancient history. According to historians, that Nalanda flourished between the reign of Gupta king, and the Gupta king, he was known as Shakraditya. Another name, he is known as Kumar Gupta. Kumar Gupta was a very famous ruler of Gupta dynasty who ruled from 415 to 55, and 1197 CE, supported by patronage from Buddhist emperors like Harshvardhan, who belonged to Vardhan dynasty, and later on other emperors of Pala Empire from Bengal, they also supported this university. At its peak in the 7th century AD, Nalanda held some 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers, which when it was visited by the Chinese scholar Huinsang. So next, the idea is very important about the Nalanda University, which was given by our former President of India, Honorable Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He mooted the idea of the reviving the ancient Nalanda University while addressing the Bihar State Legislative Assembly in March 2006. The first steps towards realizing the dream of reinventing the old Nalanda had been taken. Almost simultaneously, some other foreign universities, they also initiated a lot. So that Singapore government presented the Nalanda proposal in front of the Indian government, suggesting the re-establishment of the ancient university. In the same spirit, the state government of Bihar was very quick to adopt the idea, this visionary idea, and consulted with the government of India on the way ahead. Then great Indian scientists, not only the education, we are having great Indian educationists, scientists and mathematicians with us. So Aryabhatta, the Indian scientist, he invented the digit 0. Without 0, maths is 0. So place value also, place value system, the decimal system were also developed in India in 100 BC. very important part of the mathematics, that is pi system. So the value of pi was first calculated by Indian mathematicians. His name was Bodhayan, and later on the theory of calculus and all, it was developed by the European people. So the basic theories were given by the Indians. It's really a very proud matter for all of us. So that Bodhayan, who also explained the concept of Pythagoras theorem also. Trigonometry, algebra, calculus studies were originated here in India. Sridharacharya used quadratic equations in 11th century. Bhaskaracharya also calculated the time taken by the earth to orbit the sun hundreds of years ago, even before the astronomers. So Ayurveda was the earliest school of medicine known to the mankind, which also the part of ancient Indian education. You may have heard about the name of Charak and Sushrut. They were the great physicians in Indian time period, in ancient time period. So the father of the Ayurvedic medicine, we are taking the name of Charak. He consolidated Ayurveda 2500 years ago, and finally yoga and pranayam for the physical fitness and mental peace are the universal gift of India to the entire human civilization. So now I am concluding. So due to various changes such as modernization, industrialization, urbanization, privatization, globalization, as well as the influence of Western culture accompanied many problems and evils in Indian society that cause decline ethical values in Indian education system. So this system has definitely increased literacy rate, but not helps in creating educated person in the society, and as a result it does not produce ideal citizens in the country. So today the Indian society is bound to encounter new and perpetual problems. We see uncontrolled corruption and decreases in ethical values is taking place gradually in the society. Unlawful activities, inhuman behavior, indiscipline, violation of rules, no self-realization and immoral consumption, which is slowly breaking the structure of Indian society, nation and the world. So it is the high time to identify the aim of education and major causes of declining social moral values and spiritual strengthening in the Indian education system. So we better inclined towards our ancient Indian education system, though lot of the parts are already added in our new education policy 2020. So thank you all. Again, we'll meet with another series of Idea of Bharat. Thank you everyone.